Hi, I'm Josh and I'm here to talk with you about the Dirtywave Mate, a tiny portable tracker. I've had this for about 6 months, and in that time I've really been able to solidify— my cats are being loud. I've had it for a little over 6 months, and in that time I've been able to solidify my opinions on it, and I'm here to tell you what I think. Now, this isn't going to be an exhaustive list of tech specs, more just a baseline understanding of what the Mate is and how well I'm gelling with it. And to clear up any potential confusion, I'm going to be talking about the official hardware for the Mate, but there is another option of a way to get one called Mate Headless. You get a Teensy 4.1 microcontroller. That's the model. It's not a descriptor of the size, that they are quite small. But you use the Teensy 4.1 and an SD card, and you can use your computer as a screen and a means of controlling it, and it functionally is the same as the official Dirtywave Mate. This option is called Mate Headless, and I'm kind of giving the game away here, but if you have even a vague interest in the Dirtywave Mate, I recommend Mate Headless. You can get everything you need for, I'd say, under about $50, and you get access to an incredibly fun and functional way of making music. But as for the official hardware, we'll discuss its pros and cons, and as we go, please consider leaving a like and subscribing if you haven't already. And as a fun little game, there's 4 big audio demos that I'm going to do with the Mate, and each one is going to be a cover of a song, so if you recognize the song, leave a comment with whichever ones you can name. Anyway, let's get right into it. So this is the Mate. It's quite minuscule with just 8 buttons on its face, and then it has this big sharp screen. Now the buttons are mechanical keyboard keys, so very clicky. The Mate gives you 8 monophonic channels with layers of screens that go from your song view into a chain, into your phrase view, and then from there you can look at particular instruments, which is like your synth patch. The limited face controls do mean that there's a heavy reliance on button combos and shortcuts, but fortunately they include a cheat sheet. The operation does get pretty fast after a bit of use. It's like learning combos in a fighting game, and I guess that seems appropriate since the button layout does seem to be modeled after a Game Boy, and the operation is actually very similar to a popular Game Boy tracker called Little Sound DJ. The Mate has a handful of different options for sound sources, from samples to internal synth engines. These include Wave Synth, which is more for chiptune sounds, Macro Synth, which on its own can generate strings, drums, just a whole mess of sounds, and an FM Synth. Our first demo was entirely Wave Synth, and then the last one that we just heard was a mix of every synth engine with the sampler. The point I want to communicate is that for sound generation, the Mate is really flexible. It can also be used as a MIDI sequencer, but that's just not how I tend to use it. I find that while the screen is big enough to see while you're using it handheld, if you're moving around a studio to change settings on synths, the screen is too small and it's difficult to see. For sequencing, I like to use something heftier like a laptop. And that brings us to the topic of sequencing, or should I say, tracking. So on trackers, you enter notes vertically and it plays from top to bottom. You essentially build the songs out of building blocks. You can see that I've got these phrases that are all part of a chain, and then the chains I order into a song. And that's pretty much how you put everything together. Each chain and phrase is numerical, like this is chain 0, 1, or I could go into chain 0, 0. And every instance of chain 0, 1 or chain 0, 0 is going to be exactly the same. So making a change to one of them is going to make a change to all of them, and the same is true for phrases. So if I change phrase 0, 0 up here, it's going to change every other instance of phrase 0, 0 in the same way. This helps streamline composition and contributes to this blazingly fast feel as you start to get used to using a tracker, that it really does become second nature. Now, I will admit that when you compare it to other popular groove boxes like the OP1, it's not as interesting of a process to watch, but actually doing it, it feels very, very satisfying. Earlier, I described learning these button combos as like learning combos in a fighting game, and I guess that getting really familiar with a tracker is like executing a really complex combo in a fighting game. It is, it just feels very satisfying. In terms of build, the Mate is a heavy hitter. The body is made of metal, and like I said earlier, the screen is sharp and bright, and the mechanical keyboard keys, nice and clicky. It's small, but it feels substantial, and it even includes a lovely bag and case. Boop. Which help it travel, and all that fits pretty easily in a backpack. It has built-in speakers here, and I wouldn't use them for making any important mixing decisions, but they're still pretty powerful and punchy considering the price. My only point of concern really is battery life. Now, it's not terrible, it's just unexceptional. It charges over USB, so my solution is just to bring a portable power pack if your Mate keeps dying. A small one might even fit into the Mate's travel case. I think I should also point out that the Mate uses 3.5mm jacks up here at the top for the audio and MIDI I/O. Now this doesn't bother me too much. As I mentioned earlier, I don't really use the Mate for a lot of MIDI sequencing. And as far as using the 3.5mm, it's just not an issue. But I know that there are folks for whom that is, something important to consider. On the Mate, I'm pretty confident that's a space-saving measure. I mean, the case up here is just ever so thick enough to be able to accommodate a 3.5mm jack. But if you want to get this and do a lot of MIDI sequencing, I'd recommend picking up at least one other 3.5mm to 5-pin MIDI adapter, since it just includes one. Closing comments. Why did I say it like that? The Mate is killer. I love the tracker, I love the stature, and I love how varied it can sound. Now, do I recommend it? Well, in the headless form, sure. When it comes to the official hardware, I guess it depends on whether you think a premium build merits a premium price. If you're DIY minded and electronics handy, then building your own hardware for a Dirtywave Mate with a Teensy 4.1 might be something that you would enjoy. But if you want a powerful, portable, and pre-made device for the cost of, well, cost, the official hardware does fit that bill, but don't buy it from anyone who's trying to sell for an inflated price. Now, it's not fun to buy something and then, have to wait before you can get it, but if you are going to buy a Dirtywave Mate, like the official hardware, I recommend going onto the Dirtywave website and trying to pre-order one. I'm not affiliated with Dirtywave or anything like that. It's just that, this is not a project by a huge company. Being a small project means that every individual consumer picking one up, it just has a greater impact. So it's something to keep in mind. But that's my take. If you've used the Mate, either headless or a head full, what do you think about it? How many of those demo tracks do you recognize? And as a random third question, what's your favorite burger topping? The comments are going to be maybe a little bit inscrutable for people who haven't watched to the end. And kind of on that topic, thank you for sticking around until the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider leaving a like and hitting subscribe if you haven't already. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.